people of YouTube, my handle is Lord of Diamonds. So you've heard the legends, right? For his Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal soundtracks, Mick Gordon used the sounds of an electric guitar combined with the sounds of a chainsaw and a lawnmower to create the super gnarly guitar sounds that you hear in those soundtracks. How did he do it? Well, in this video I'm going to do a little bit of demonstration, explanation, and examination as to how those sounds are created. Let's get cracking. So how is this going to be done? How are we going to do something as crazy as interpolate high gain electric guitar sounds with the sounds of a chainsaw and a lawnmower? We're obviously going to need the right tools for the job. The first couple of parts seem easy enough. We need an electric guitar. That's easy enough, right? If we're talking about the Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal soundtracks, obviously we're talking about extended range guitars, that is 8 and 9 strings. Guitars that go too low for any sane person unless you're a Gent fan. Well, unfortunately, both of my guitars, one of which is in the shop right now getting a setup done on it, are 6 strings and don't handle low tunings very well. So for the purposes of this video, I'll be playing a distorted bass guitar. Distorted bass guitar, what could possibly go wrong? But that's the easy part. The hard part is, how are we going to take the chainsaw and lawnmower sound and introduce its characteristics into the distorted guitar sound? Well, Mick Gordon was good enough to do a GDC talk a few years ago, which is readily available to watch on YouTube. And in that video, he laid out some breadcrumbs as to how he created those sounds. You see, there's this plugin, and it's called Morph. Used to be made by a company called ProSonic, but is now made by a company called Synaptic. And what it does is it takes one sound that you input into it, and another sound that you also input into it, and depending on how you set the controls, you can introduce characteristics of one sound into the other in a rather unique way that is somewhat comparable to what a vocoder does, but not at the same time. That's not a good comparison. Why did I make that comparison? Oh, one more thing which I almost forgot. We're gonna need a lawnmower sound and a chainsaw sound. I figured that I would make the chainsaw and lawnmower sounds myself because gotta be original somehow, right? We've got a lawnmower, got a chainsaw, we've got my recording setup over there, we've got a couple of microphones, an SM57, and an Audix i5, which I am currently speaking into right now. The Audix i5 is very well suited to recording metal guitar because it has a natural sort of smiley face EQ curve. That's not really what we're doing right now, is it? Obviously, we've got the chainsaw, and what's the thing that we usually hear the sound from the engine from? The muffler. In a way, I guess you could almost think of the chainsaw as a speaker cabinet and the muffler as the speaker itself. Kind of a weird analogy. I think I'm going to have the Audix i5 on the muffler, or close to the muffler, so that I don't blow nasty engine smoke into the microphone and potentially ruin it. And the SM57 is going to be at a sort of a distance, probably a few feet or so. I'll worry about phase later. Let's give it a try. So now that we've got our sounds recorded, we can move over to the computer and start to put them together in the way that Mick Gordon did on the Doom soundtracks. So I've already recorded some guitar parts. Well, in this case, they're bass parts because I don't have an extended range guitar. You kind of have to have one of those to recreate the spirit of the newer Doom soundtracks. Both of them are riffs that you probably are familiar with. We've also got the Hellwalker riff. The tune as it already is pretty kick-ass. I'm using the Cola Color Studios Grindstein plugin. This is a really good plugin if you just want like to toss it onto a guitar or bass track and immediately get that grinding tone with a modern metal touch thrown in there. It's a good instant modern metal tone box as well. The bass tracks sound kick-ass already, but we've also got some tracks of chainsaw and lawnmower down here. I've already went through the trouble of sort of phase aligning the chainsaws, and I've also got over here the original Doom chainsaw sound effect from the original game, which I've looped. So now we can get into the process of actually combining all of this stuff with our guitar/bass tracks. This is the plugin. This is what we're going to be using to introduce the characteristics of the chainsaw, lawnmower, and all that into the bass tracks. You'll notice that I have routed the output from these chainsaw tracks into the group track for the basses. Now, if I just output those to the master real quick, and I'll just show you how these sound. That's the original Doom chainsaw sound effect. And that's the lawnmower engine. So we've got that, and now if we turn on Morph and we hit play, then something very interesting happens. All of a sudden, we have this tremendous, grinding, very nasty tone. It's sort of similar to what you would get like if you used an amp simulator, but you didn't tack an impulse response onto the end of it. It's sort of like that kind of character, but it's more unique. It's more non-linear. It sounds more chaotic in a good way. And you'll notice that on the controls here, I've mixed in a bit of the original track at a semi-low level to just give it a little bit more weight, if you will. I apologize for the vague terminology there. But anyway, let's get into the controls of this thing and what they can do. What we've got over here, these controls right here are where the sound mostly lives. So the formants is pretty cool. I can sort of compare it to a presence knob on an amplifier. Like if you turn it down to, say, 0.4 instead of 0.5. You notice how the high frequencies have sort of shifted a little bit. So now it sounds a little bit less like an impulse responseless amp sim, but still really nasty. And like you can take this down to really low extremes or super high to the point where it kind of loses that good chaos sound and it just becomes nasty. Then over here we have the crossfaders. This is how you determine how the original sound is actually going to be morphed with the input. So you can drag this around. Whereas down here is 100% A signal, or the original. And over here is 100% of the input signal. So you can crossfade the two signals with each other like this. And you can morph them with each other by dragging it up and down. Right in the center is 100% morph between the two, but that doesn't sound all that great. It's hard to make out any notes. The only real note that you can hear is the grinding of the chainsaw. That doesn't sound really good. Generally, I find that the safest settings, at least on this morphing algorithm, are about in this area right here. If you get beyond that, then it starts to sound a little bit too undefined. You start to hear more of the chainsaw, or you start to hear less of the note articulation. Yeah, it's real nasty. And if we bring back in the original signal to a level of about -9 decibels, then we get a very nasty tone. Now, we can control this further by turning down the amp sensitivity. First thing, if you turn it all the way down, you're going to get usually a sort of thinner, brighter sound. But what it's also going to do is it's going to decrease the morphing algorithm's sensitivity to adjustments in amplitude. If our morphing input was
all over the place as far as level goes, then you might play with this a little bit and get the morphing to be more consistent that way. But our chainsaw is pretty consistent here. Now you can turn down the complexity, and when you combine that with turning down the amp sensitivity, you'll get a very digital sort of sound, like electronic. That's kind of cool. Now, while we're at it, we might as well check out what the lawnmower has to offer. Let me loop this section real quick and route it back into the bass track. That sounds pretty cool. It almost sounds like it's broken, like it's straining and cracking. It's a pretty cool tonal quality. Definitely would feel right at home in an industrial track. But now let's move on to the original Doom chainsaw sound effect, which I've looped here. Now I actually pre-recorded the distorted bass part for this one. That's something that I wrote myself. So now if we turn on Morph again and we play it back with the original Doom chainsaw. Yeah, I still don't really like it. It doesn't feel like it's gnarly enough. I feel like it could be gnarlier. And this is where we can get into some different morphing algorithms. This one in particular, tight, I find to be really good for the original chainsaw sound effect if you loop it. You get this really weird, like, almost bit-crushed sounding fuzz over the top of everything. It almost sounds a little bit like the Boss HM2 pedal, which has been the source of the guitar tone that people have called the chainsaw guitar tone. So it is kind of ironic that by combining the sound of a chainsaw with a distorted guitar in this method, you can get somewhere close to that sound. The possibilities for creating new and weird distortion effects with this method are endless. Like, if you hear a distorted sound that has a distorted quality that you like and you would like to combine it with a guitar sound, then you can make that happen using this method. Weird industrial gritty tones, everything, like, it doesn't just have to be guitars. Like, you could probably apply this to like a synthesizer track, a vocal track even. Like, I don't know what this would sound like on vocals, but it would probably be really weird. Like, if you were to record the same song, same lyrics, but one you would clean sing it and one you would do death growls, and you tried to morph it with each other, like, that would probably sound very interesting indeed. I actually kind of want to try that now.
So there you have it. That is how you use a chainsaw or a lawnmower or really any other weird distorted sound as an instrument in the same way that Mick Gordon did on the Doom soundtracks. Now, as for alternatives to Morph that do the same thing for less money or cheaper, I don't know if they exist. They may not exist at all. Morph may be the only plugin that does that kind of thing, but it's still a really fun thing to try out if you get the chance to. That's about all I have for today. If you like this video, then make sure you like it, leave a comment down there, join my Discord server, which is also linked down there. If you really like what you see, subscribe. If you want to see more Doom related content or like id game related content in general, I think I'm sort of getting an idea in my head about what I want this channel to be themed around. I think I just want it to really be themed around like id games in general, like particularly the sound and musical aspects of them, because there is some really interesting stuff to be found in there as far as music and audio goes. But anyway, again, that's all I have for today. Like, comment, share, and subscribe and all that. Till next time, everybody, Diamond out.